We're live. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Um, See you at the Folders event at the weekend. How did that go?
I'm in so much pain still. It's 2 days in and I'm absolutely written off. I tried to do hot yoga yesterday and I'm still in pieces. But no, it was good. It's my first. Although I live half an hour away, it's my first time popping into Folders just because of timing and things hadn't worked out before. But yeah, proper setup. And I think years to come, it was going to be a serious event over the
Is
next
that
few.
like your first like functional, aside from HYROX, which obviously we'll get into, is that like your first like functional fitness type event that you've done?
Yeah, so I did ATHEX
Oh
the
yeah.
other week as well, but because I'm strong, but I'm not as strong as some of the boys are just a joke. Like back squatting 10 reps, 170. Like I'm not even no thanks. So yeah, that type of functional, like real, yeah, that functional element, probably one of the first, yeah.
All right, cool. So what is your background? I know you're very good at running. Is running your primary background?
So early stage, yeah. I used to run a lot alongside playing football, alongside every other sport possible. And then you get to a point where you start taking things a bit more seriously. So at like 14, 15, when I realized I probably had a career in football, I pushed on with that, and then running kind of took a sidestep, but obviously kind of fits quite nicely with being a centre midfielder who can run box to box. So running always stayed a big part. But yeah, football was the big passion and big kind of career. Played semi-pro up till 18 when I went to uni, and then played first team at Coventry Uni for a couple of years, and then tried to pursue after uni, but it didn't quite work out for whatever reason. I went and had trials in Scotland, went to Poland for a bit, and then I was meant to move to Chicago, and then COVID happened. So yeah, and then I didn't really touch a ball for 3-ish years, but then moved up to Birmingham 2 years ago, and that's when my running really kicked on again because I joined a club, and I still had the foundations of like a 16:35K, just through lockdown 5Ks with the virtual running about, and then since joining the club, dropped down to 15:20. I ran on Friday as a new PB. So
Nice, congrats.
3 days. Well, yeah, sub 15 is the goal. But
Are you missing football at all?
yeah, I did a talk on Friday up in Manchester about like pride in sport, pride in football, and I was chatting to some of the boys who still play, and I was like, "Oh, I really do miss it. Like I will go back, but now that I'm obviously quite far into the HYROX fitness journey, just little niggles really impact training, which is kind of one of the reasons why I stopped last year when I was training for the marathon.
Okay. So you've discovered HYROX. How did that come about? Was that like through your running club?
Um, I think social media more than anything. So I've always kind of trained in that hybrid type role. Obviously, through football, you want to be strong and fit, or running fit and cardiovascular wise. Anyway, so my training's always kind of been like that. I've always swam. I've always ran. I've always enjoyed that sort of putting yourself into a bit of a pain cave, and I'm sure we'll get onto it. It's helped me quite a lot with my journey and my story and sort of the mental health side of things that fitness does bring. But yeah, it was I think through social media, and I was like, I reckon I could be quite good at this, to be fair. And then my first event was Barcelona last year, to which I trained probably for like couple of months maybe, after doing London Marathon and then a couple of half marathons. And now I'm trying to go full ham and see what I can really do with it.
I see you've said somewhere on social media that your aim is to become the UK's fittest man, as per HYROX.
Yeah.
So what is your time in HYROX at the moment?
So it's 66 is my time, and I feel like obviously it's a good time, but it's not a representation of where I'm at. So I did one in Malmo, which I'm sure you're aware was cancelled, and then we did like a gym run through, which is obviously different to HYROX. I mean, the running was outside and the rock zone was completely different, and I did that in 56.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't think it's going to have added or taken off more than 4 or 5 minutes anyway. So I think at that point I would have probably been around 60. But now after I'm 4 or 5 weeks into my training block at the moment, leading up to Birmingham, and we're hoping for minimum sub 60, but hopefully get into those top spots.
Nice. I was gonna sort of set the scene, if you like, for at the start of this for people that don't know you, but like we touched on your 5K time already. It's 15:20, did you say?
15:20 last week.
And you're a reasonably big, jacked guy. You're not.
I'm 88 kilos. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not 60-kilogram runner. So like just purely from that perspective on paper, you can become very good at HYROX. And funnily enough, I was going to start writing a ones to watch article at some point, like elite contenders, and I think you're certainly in that in my book. What do you think you need to do to get to that like elite 15 level? Is there things that you think still need to be worked on? Because presumably your running is like,
yeah, my running doesn't really need too much of adapting. It's just kind of keeping that structure the same. I think my biggest thing is because I always played football, I never really trained legs too much because I was playing twice a week. Like you play on a Tuesday, you play on a Saturday, you don't really have time, and then you train on a Thursday. You don't really have time to smash a heavy leg session and then do some compromised running because you're playing 90 minutes and you need to be fresh. So I think for me, it's been building that strength in the legs, and then obviously putting the two together. So the compromised with the sleds, and we're getting there. Like the strengths come on like ridiculous amounts compared to where I was. So it's kind of just piecing all the bits together, which is kind of what HYROX is anyway, isn't it? So
yeah.
All the other bits like the ergs, the ski erg, I normally come out first if I do that, like can quite easily smash out a 3:30 on the ergs. And then it's just getting the running together. And then Manchester, I had a bad back, so I've just had injections into my back as well, which hasn't been great. So Manchester, I was running on half a back.
Okay.
So just doing it and then being fully fit on the day.
So
lining everything up to really compete.
Have you changed your running training like since moving into HYROX? Like now you train running with a view to running HYROX. Does that look differently to what it might look if you were training for a half marathon, for example?
At the moment, we've not adapted it too much. I have actually got a half marathon next weekend, which I'm training for, and to try and get under 70 minutes, which is going to be a hell of a task, but we're hopeful. So yeah, and then once I've done that, things will then be kind of adapted and shifted a bit more. So I'll put on a bit of weight. So I've tried to lose a bit of weight for this half, and then I'll put on a bit of weight, start retaking creatine, adapting a few bits of nutrition, and then probably changing some of the running. So probably reduce the mileage a little bit, and then do a little bit more compromise based sessions instead of like speed work at the track.
What is your mileage at the moment?
It fluctuates quite a bit depending on competition. I try to hit at least 65k a week, but 2 track sessions, which are like heavy sessions, like fast. So, I mean, doing like 12 times 400 reps at sub 60 per 400 meters. So, yeah, you can take a look at my Strava if you want to see some of the track sessions, if you want to copy them. They're pretty tasty. But I'm the slowest. I'm like one of the slowest in the group. So,
Wow.
I'll be sitting at the back just trying to keep on to the fast actual runners, I call them.
And then aside from those like 2 track sessions, a fairly high percentage is just zone 2 long steady runs, is it?
Yeah, relatively. I tried to get a long run on a Sunday, just more of like a casual with some of the running lads and just have a chat. And then I'll probably do 1 or 2 like tempo-y or half marathon based type training zones. And the half marathon zone kind of sits at where I want to be for the HYROX anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of works at quite a nice pace.
Okay. Do you do, just this is purely out of interest, do you do much treadmill work versus road work versus like track work? You do much on a treadmill? And if so, do you find that different? Like, do you find it still as beneficial or what?
And mix it up as much as possible. And same with like my running shoes. I change my shoes each week just to to give a bit of variance and difference on that. Treadmill work I don't do as much. I was speaking to Hunter on Sunday, and he said most of his work is done on a treadmill. I guess it's probably just easier to keep at a set pace and almost push yourself a bit harder. For me, because I'm part of a running club and running's such a big part of my life prior to HYROX as well, I've not adapted too much to that. But I think obviously gym-based work will probably be, or like HYROX specific run-through type sessions will utilize a treadmill, because you're set to a set time, and it's like you don't get off that treadmill until you've done the required distance at that pace type thing. So it kind of keeps you accountable, I guess.
Yeah, but you don't think there's like a downside to treadmill work?
No, I would say you always put on an incline of 1, just otherwise you're going to batter your knees. But other than that, I think good to mix up everything anyway.
Okay. Talk about mindset a lot with people on here. You know, where your mind goes in a tough race like HYROX, but also in a 5Ks, I personally find like disgusting. Like where just, or like in the half marathon at the weekend, if you're going to do sub 70 half marathon, where will your mind go? What will keep you pushing during that?
I talk to myself so much when I run. Like I'm constantly like, and I'm normally a bit of a dick to myself. Like I'm like, I'm like you're such a pussy, just run. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I kind of tell myself off, because I do drift. I'll find my mindset just like thinking about something else, and I'm like, nah, stick back on. So I almost like have to tell myself to get back on the zone and like focus, because it's so easy to when you're absolutely blowing to just be like, oh, I could just drop back a little bit. But at the end of the day, that you're dropping back, you're losing 10-15 seconds. And obviously with a 5K, if you're trying to get under 15 minutes, for example, you lose a second a kilometer, you've run a 15:05, and it's like, so yeah, I think I'm quite harsh. I like to be a bit horrible to myself, and if someone's shouting at me in the crowd, I'd prefer them to be like, come on, you idiot, like run, rather than like, you're doing really well. Like a bit harsh love gets me through it.
All right. If we shift a bit away from like your training and racing, you've got a football background, but you came out as gay while you were playing football.
Yeah.
Was that, and I know you've done a lot of work in sort of that community ever since then with like Stonewall and that. Was that hard in the football environment to come out as gay during that?
Yeah, I mean, it's still one of the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and that's why I have such a big push in terms of helping other people with it, especially in sort of worlds like football and like HYROX, for example. It's quite a masculine sport, isn't it? You're trying to be the best. You're trying to be almost the fittest person in the planet. It's quite macho, so it's like it's almost breaking down stereotypes within the sporting world. And I was speaking about it last weekend. Like there's not a Premier League player that's come out as gay, and it's like, how are we still at that stage? So it's like, I mean, it means a lot to me because I've come through it. I've come out the other side, and I'm like quite happy and comfortable. But at the time, it was almost impossible to even say the words. And it's like, anyone listening to this in the sport of HYROX or in the sport, like I was at Strive on the weekend and at Forders with my partner, quite happily, like holding hands, walking around, feeling comfortable. And it's like, it's trying to show that you can be in a sport like HYROX, but also come out at the same time. So yeah, I mean, it was flipping difficult. And I think my message to anyone is to just kind of be accepting and be the person that someone would want to come out to as well. Especially when they're in a sporting world, it can feel quite like you're on your own. So it's trying to reduce the stigma and allow people to do both at the same time.
Do you feel like obviously like just doing what you do and talking about it and everything helps and probably encourages others to do the same? Do you feel like there's anything on the sporting side that like football needs to do different, or even HYROX, seeing as this is a HYROX podcast?
It's tough because I remember seeing like the rainbows and rainbow laces campaign when I was in the closet, and I would almost run away from it. Like I didn't want anything to be a part of it. So it's a really tough thing to say you need to do more, because we don't really know what the answer of doing more is. I think the biggest thing is just kind of shining a light on excellence within the gay community, which is hard because there's not that many people that are out, because we've made it really difficult to come out as a whole. But yeah, it's just celebrating stories and allow it, like it's so normal, just like allowing me to have this conversation on the podcast with you. It's like it could help, even if it helps one person, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it's almost just making it as normal and as natural as possible. But it's something I was going to say anyway. It would be nice to see some more diversity within HYROX anyway. It's quite a white sport. Like, you don't see too many people of ethnic minorities involved in the sport. So I think it would be nice to have a push on that regard anyway, just as a whole, because sport, again, as we know, is for everyone, and everyone should be encouraged to come and play and get involved. So yeah.
What does the you're doing some work with, is it Stonewall? Is that
yeah.
What does that work involve?
So a lot of like going and doing talks, potentially speaking at schools, going into assemblies, and just sort of telling my story in a sense. Because so my role is a sports champion. So anyone who's got a background or a role in sport, I guess, could become a sports champion. But because I've got a bit of a profile, it's quite helpful, and I'm quite good at public speaking. It allows people to sort of, again, break down that stereotype and see someone in a sporting role being quite successful, being happily out and celebrating themselves. So yeah, talks, going to pride events, doing panel discussions, certain podcasts and things along the lines of just sort of, again, just the awareness element of being gay and being in sport. So they're primarily a sports-based organisation, but anything LGBTQ plus related.
Okay, all right, great. Shifting away from that side of things, yeah, I've got some quick fire questions that I normally fire at some people. So one is, what's your best sporting experience that you've had in your lifetime?
Playing or watching, but either. Probably winning the league at uni when we won the league with like literally your best mates, because you played together for 3 years, and then it comes down to like winning the league, getting promoted. That was pretty awesome. And then,
do you feel like the team element like is something you'll miss, but like if you could continue to pursue HYROX?
Yeah, I like, even on the weekend, it was nice to compete as a team, but then at the same time, you're like, you just kind of want it to be yourself at the same time, so you can just like, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, no, team. I think having a mixture of both is really cool. But yeah, you will always miss a team event if you come from a team event and then go solo. But I guess because I've had the running background, I've been able to kind of have both at the same time anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Were you going to say another experience?
I was thinking. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But yeah.
Okay. All right.
Winning the league, probably.
How about the toughest thing that you've done in sport?
I would always say coming out in sport was probably the hardest thing. In terms of that, I think HYROX Manchester was pretty tough mentally, because I literally did everything I possibly could to get my back fixed. I had chiropractor, acupuncture, cryotherapy, massage like 3 times the week before, and I literally couldn't walk like 2 weeks before, because my back was just in absolute pieces. So getting to that stage mentally was like a big thing for me, although I didn't actually do that well. Getting to the stage and actually being able to perform, and then mentally pushing through that pain barrier of knowing like nothing can actually stop me in a way, and that's obviously helped me kick on now mentally in terms of training and pushing through.
What had you done to your back? Do you know how you done it?
I had a scan, and I have some facet joint deterioration, so on your spine you have your facet joints that come off, and I've got like multi-level like facet joint, and it causes inflammation and pain and nerve type thingy. So I've had a medial branch block So getting all sciencey. I've had medial branch block injections going into my facet joint, which is basically stops the nerve sending signals, which then causes the pain. So it then decides whether that's actually the thing that's causing the pain. If that works, not always does it work. If that works, then you'll have further like cortisone steroid injections into your lower back for like longer term pain. So effectively, there's not much I can do, and there's no damage nothing that I'm going to do that's going to cause further damage. It's just flipping painful, unfortunately.
So it's still painful at the moment.
Yeah, like heavy squat, heavy loading hurts, but it's one of those where it's not causing further damage, so I just crack on, get through the pain.
What was I going to ask? Sorry, go back to you said about the toughest thing was coming out in sport, in football. Was there? I should have asked this before, but is the toughest thing like how was the response of everyone around you and in the sport when you did that? Is it tough because it's like that's what you're telling yourself is going to be?
This thing was the mental trauma and like the denial, and because I didn't have a single role model, I didn't know anyone. Like I just always told myself that I couldn't be, if that makes sense. So when I met my partner Paul, who I'm with now, like he works in cricket, like was quite sporty, was like almost the role model that I needed to see that it was okay. But yeah, and I mean, everything was pretty much perfect. I was playing for a team in Birmingham on a Sunday, football team, and they weren't great. They kicked me out of the team completely, effectively. Yeah, looking back now, it's actually really shit. But at the time, I was just like, oh, fair enough. That was probably going to happen anyway. But then you look back and you're like, oh my god, did that actually happen? So yeah, just got completely kicked off the team. And then I because I did a podcast for BBC just talking about me in sport and football. Because obviously I played to quite a high level in football, and it's not very common to have someone play at a high level and be gay at the same time. So as soon as they could, they tried to rope me in. And then the team found out because I wasn't really like open and speaking about it at that point. And yeah, they just effectively kicked me off the team, and then that's kind of when my marathon training picked up, and then I just didn't really go back to playing football after that. So marathon training, and then pretty much straight into HYROX.
Wow, that's crazy. I honestly weren't expecting you to say that, because like I've had a lifetime of football, and like, you know, no one's come out in any teams I've played in. My perception would be just like we'd almost be like, yeah, fine. Yeah, you know,
99% of the time it is obviously fine. I just got very unlucky with the team that I was in and the manager. But I have been and played for a team in the same league since, just on a couple of occasions on a Sunday, and those lads are class. So, and the team that I played for back at home, again, class as well. So that like 99% of the time it's been absolutely sound. And it's been a breeze, but I guess it depends on how you hold yourself and how you are as a person as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. Going back to the quick fire questions, what shoe are you wearing for HYROX?
I'm going out to Chamonix on Thursday with Nike, and I haven't been able to get my hands on a pair of they've just brought out a new Nike trail shoe, but it's carbon plated. So it's got the trail grip, but it's also really fast. So if I can get a pair of those, I'll test them out and I'll try them. If not, I don't think you can go wrong with the Pumas, to be honest. The DV8s, again, I'm pretty sure they're carbon plated as well. Mm-hmm. Good grip, decent for running, protect your ankles on the corners. So yeah, probably stick with those if the Nikes don't cut it.
Cool. I think some people are wearing a Nike Vaporfly 3, is it? I think. Yeah,
so I wore them on. I wore them on Sunday, but just for the running. Like I don't really get on with them for the sleds and things, and they're so unstable that I think the Pumas just trump them, to be honest.
Okay, right. Tell me a random interesting fact about yourself.
Jesus Christ.
That's the first time I've asked this question, I must admit. So if you haven't got one, we'll just cut it out.
It's not really an interesting fact, but I've got a dog called Roxy, and she's literally right next. I'm going to show you. She's right next to me and she's upside down.
Waiting for a belly rub.
Yeah. She comes on most of my steady runs with me.
Oh, did she?
Bless her. Yeah, she's a good runner.
Cool.
Gets out on the block.
Cool. Post-race food.
Pizza.
Same.
Yeah, I like a pizza.
It's the only time I crave a pizza is after a race, and then I just want to eat them all.
I don't tend to go McDonald's, but yeah, anything pizza related. I mean, Hawaiian as well.
Yeah, same. Sporting hero.
Used to be Frank Lampard, probably still is. I'm a Chelsea fan, and football. So grew up watching and playing football pretty heavily. So it was always Frank. And then recently, I would say Josh Kerr, 800 meter, 1500 meter runner. So he just won the world championships as well. For anyone that watched, Scottish lad.
I've been watching now, like, because I've not always been a runner or, you know, even like done anything beyond 100 meters. I've got a newfound appreciation of how quick some of those guys are over like 800, 1500. It's actually mad.
The way they can make it so casual as well.
Yeah.
Like they look like they're jogging. Yeah. But if you just put a random person in, you realise how much they're actually motoring.
Yeah. It's a good point. I was saying that, like, just how easy they make it look, and I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Like they're just so relaxed, so easy, and they're like,
their average speed, they're clocking like 220 per kilometer type speeds, like when they're doing that type of running.
Mad. What's your aim for the new season?
Big aim, so like pushing myself would be at Elite 15. Obviously, I know there's going to be some serious people trying to contend. Obviously, it gets bigger and bigger every year, doesn't it? So that's I mean, that would be overachieving, I think. But then I guess priority number one would be top 3 in the UK. I think that's a realistic and achievable goal from where I'm at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Have you got any doubles events planned as well?
No. So if anyone fancies breaking some records, then let me know.
Get in touch. What you mentioned Birmingham. What other races have you got booked, if any?
I haven't actually booked any yet. I think I'm thinking of doing one abroad. I've heard Frankfurt's quite quick, so maybe that. I need to look at the diary, to be honest, and book in. I might see if anyone fast is running in certain places and try and keep on their toes. Always helps, doesn't it, to have someone to chase, or have them chase you. You never know.
All right, this has been great. Just one last question, which I've been asking people, and honestly, if you haven't got an answer, then again we can cut it out. But if you had a message that you can put on a billboard that would go out to the world, it can say anything, what would you put on it?
It would go along the lines of sport for everyone. So that's obviously my big message, and it has been over the last few years is accessibility to sport. So something along those lines of just that inclusive element of, yes, we can be elite, but I think that's why HYROX is so good as well, because it has that element of like belonging and anyone can do it. And you see like the grannies that were doing it at the Manchester, it was just awesome, and everyone got behind them. So yeah, just a level of inclusivity in sport and acceptance.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, thank you for doing this. For people that want to find out more about you, get in touch. What's the best place for that?
Instagram is probably the best bet. It's just Jake Williamson _PT. I am about to do a little mini like documentary series type thing on me and HYROX and sport in general, which will probably be a YouTube series. But if you go through Instagram, you'll see it anyway. So yeah, Instagram or TikTok it's all the same handle. But TikTok's not as active. Okay.
All right, perfect. Well, good luck for the new season. Good luck for breaking into the Elite 15.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I've said it now. I've got to do it, and
yeah, we've made it public.
No.
All right. Thank you for this. Take care.
Nice one. Cheers, Greg.
Right.